The twin suns of the temple world cast long pale beams across the ancient courtyard, where silent statues watched over the gathering of pilgrims. The oldest records claimed the temple had stood for thousands of cycles, built before the first starships left the home cluster. Its heart held the reliquary chamber, and at its center rested the Blade of Dawn. Every species that followed the celestial path believed the blade had been forged by divine hands, placed on the world as a test, and destined only for the chosen. The priests had spent lifetimes guarding it, chanting hymns around it, and teaching that no mortal could touch it without consequence. In that sacred place walked a lone human named Mark. He was not a warrior. He was not noble. He was not a scholar of alien history. He was a cargo hauler pilot whose ship had suffered a sudden engine blowout near the system. A distress beacon had brought rescuers, who guided him to the surface to rest while repairs continued. Mark accepted the detour with the relaxed mood of someone used to mechanical mishaps. He stretched his legs, admired the architecture, and took in the alien scenery with curiosity. The temple priests regarded him with cautious interest. Humans were recent arrivals to wider galactic society, known for improvisation, stubbornness, and a strange sense of humor. Many species found their behavior unpredictable. Some found humans inspiring. Others found them alarming. The priests had no strong opinion, but the arrival of an outsider on the day of the blade ritual stirred unease. Near the chamber entrance stood Elder Ryan, an alien priest whose long mantle shimmered with gold threads. His features were sharp, and his voice carried a deep resonance that filled the hall. He watched Mark approach with slow, deliberate steps that suggested both caution and respect. Behind him, younger acolytes shifted nervously, whispering about omens and signs. Mark glanced at the chamber doorway, noticing the carved metalwork that depicted gods raising the blade high above the world. He whistled softly at the craftsmanship. He had grown up attending yard sales on old colony stations, learning to recognize antiques and cheap replicas, and the intricate design triggered that familiar instinct to inspect anything shiny. Ryan raised a hand to halt him. Mark stopped, eyebrows lifting in polite confusion. "This space is sacred," Ryan said. "Only those who walk the celestial path may cross its threshold." Mark nodded with an easy smile. "No problem. Just sightseeing." But Ryan continued to watch him thoughtfully. There was a prophecy spoken in the Elders' archives, one describing an outsider who would appear during the alignment of the twin suns. The prophecy said the outsider would reveal a truth the priests had forgotten. Some believed the prophecy was metaphorical. Others believed it was literal. Ryan had always leaned toward symbolism, but he felt a strange certainty now. "Perhaps," Ryan said, "the arrival of a traveler is not without purpose." Mark blinked. He had been asked strange things in strange places before, but this was new. "I'm just a tired pilot, friend." Nothing prophetic. "Even so," Ryan said, "the blade awaits all who approach without fear." Mark looked past him. "Blade?" Ryan stepped aside with a solemn gesture. The reliquary chamber lay open. At its center stood a circular dais, carved from shimmering blackstone. Above it hovered the legendary Blade of Dawn, balanced on a field of energy as old as the temple. Light danced along its surface. The priests knelt around it, heads bowed. Mark muttered under his breath, "Nice piece of work." Ryan spoke with reverence. "Only gods lift that blade." Mark gave a short laugh, thinking it was a ceremonial phrase. "Looks like something that would show up in a yard sale container next to old tools and dented cookware." Ryan stiffened as the acolytes gasped. The air trembled. In their culture, the blade was not a metaphor. It was an article of faith. Legends said anyone unworthy who touched it would crumble to dust. The priests had tried lifting it once many generations ago. Their strongest champions had strained without moving it. Since then, they believed only beings of divine resonance could hold it. Mark realized only then that his casual comment had unsettled the room. He lifted his hands apologetically. Sorry, didn't mean anything. It's beautiful work, really. But Ryan studied him with eyes that held a quiet challenge. You have spoken boldly? Perhaps the blade called you. No blade calls me, Mark said with a shrug. Then test your words, Ryan said. If you are unafraid, step on to the dais. Mark hesitated. He did not want to offend them. He also did not want to be dust. Yet curiosity tugged at him with stubborn insistence. Humans had a long tradition of confronting the unknown, often with reckless bravery and sometimes with surprising success. Mark stepped forward. The priests whispered in alarm. Ryan raised his hand and silenced them. Mark walked slowly across the chamber, feeling a faint hum of energy beneath his feet. The blade hovered at chest level. Light shimmered across its surface. He examined it like a man evaluating an object with practical eyes. The handle looked like hammered alloy. The blade shape resembled a long curved design. It could have been a ceremonial piece or a hardened tool. Mark reached out his hand. Wait, an acolyte cried. He will perish. But Mark touched the handle. Nothing happened. No collapse. No dust. The priests froze. Mark closed his fingers around it and lifted out. The blade of dawn rose smoothly in his grip as if weightless. A hush fell over the chamber so deep it was almost painful. The priests stared in disbelief. Ryan's composure cracked just enough to reveal shock. Mark turned the blade slightly, studying the way light moved along it. Well, Mark said with casual wonder, that's lighter than I expected. The hall erupted with cries. Some fell to their knees. Others backed away in fear. Ryan stepped closer, his voice trembling. This is impossible. Only gods lift that blade. Mark raised it slightly in a testing motion. Maybe your calibration field is off. Ryan nearly toppled. Calibration field? Mark gave him a sympathetic look. Ancient tech sometimes glitches. Why not check the stabilizers under the dais? The acolytes whispered in confusion. Their entire worldview had rested on the blade's immovability. Now an ordinary visitor held it like a lost tool. Ryan approached the dais and knelt beside the mechanisms, hidden beneath the carved stonework. The priests had not opened that panel in generations. He touched the release, and the compartment slid open with a hiss. Inside lay an ancient generator with fractured cores and darkened wires. Dust clung to the components. Ryan stared at it. This is not divine resonance. Mark leaned over. Nope, looks like an old lift field. Probably meant to keep the blade steady until someone replaced the core. My guess is the field decayed. That would make the blade feel heavy to you. Ryan looked up at him slowly. You say the blade felt heavy because the field malfunctioned. Exactly, Mark said. Technology ages. Nothing lasts forever unless someone maintains it. Ryan's world shifted. Generations of belief crumbled and reformed in a single moment. He rose unsteadily. The priests around him murmured in distress. Some feared that their faith had been a misunderstanding. Others feared this revelation would destroy their culture. Mark saw their turmoil and softened his voice. Hey, it doesn't have to change the meaning of what you believe. The people who built this clearly wanted to teach something. Maybe the test wasn't about divine strength. Maybe it was about curiosity or discovery, or knowing when to look deeper. Ryan listened, absorbing each word with the solemnity of a student at the dawn of a lesson. Mark continued, when humans find an old piece of tech, we take it apart. We figure out what it used to do. We fix it or learn from it. Your people preserved this place beautifully, but maybe the builders wanted someone to question the mystery, not worship it without ever opening the cover. Ryan glanced at the open generator again. You believe the truth was always meant to be uncovered. Pretty much, Mark said. If something is worth guarding, it's worth understanding. The priests exchanged uncertain looks. Their culture had honored tradition above all. They had inherited technology they no longer understood. They repeated rituals without questioning origins. Now the outsider offered a new path. Ryan bowed slowly. Perhaps the prophecy was not about a god with strength beyond measure. Perhaps it was about a traveler who would bring clarity. Mark smiled awkwardly. Well, I'm no prophet. Just a guy who grew up sorting through boxes of old tools. Ryan approached him again. The blade no longer belongs on this dais. It has chosen its bearer. Mark shook his head. No way. I'm not walking around with some ancient artifact. Someone will think I stole it. Ryan insisted. You lifted it when none other could. The relic has returned to mortal hands. It is meant to be shared with the galaxy once more. Mark considered the weight of the responsibility. He did not want to insult them. He also did not want to start a holy war by refusing. He lowered the blade slightly. What if I help you repair the field instead? Mark said. That way you can keep your relic where it belongs. Ryan felt a new wave of revelation. You would help us restore our temple. Sure, Mark said. I know a bit about old power units, and I can teach some basics. You and your acolytes can maintain it yourselves afterward. The acolytes leaned in, hesitant but hopeful. Ryan nodded with renewed purpose. So Mark set the blade gently onto a padded cloth. The priests flinched, expecting catastrophe. Nothing happened. Mark knelt beside the generator and studied the components. He explained each part in straightforward language. T